Hey, everybody, Brad Linder coming at you live this evening with Evil Ernie. We are going to be doing a 2 for tonight, a double back-to-back episode. One for today, which is the last hour before midnight, and then one right after midnight, about 12:30. So, what I've got for you right now is I'm going to share this over with the page, and then we are going to be able to go right into this. And I'm going to be using something different tonight. For the first time, I'm going to be using my cool square Copics Originals from the 2 series, and we're going to go there and knock them out from Copic Land. So, anyway, got this shared with the page now, and I'm going to start knocking this out. And we're going to start right in with Smiley. I want to knock this guy out real quick because of the fact that he's going to be bright yellow, and I don't want any of that other stuff to get in the way. So we're going to knock him out. Now, what I'm using right now is I'm using the marker point. This type of pen, these square cubes have a marker point, and then they have a wedge point. And I'm using the marker point right now so that I don't go into the graphite or the ink. I erased the heck out of this before I started painting it, but you never know if you're going to hit graphite or not. And I don't want him to have a grungy look. I want him to stay as clean as possible. So, because we're going to put some oranges and things on him that's going to really make him pop off, and I want to make sure it's clean. Right now I'm using a Y15, which this one is kind of an egg yolk color when it goes down, and then it has this really beautiful warm yellow whenever you get finished with it. So it's a really clean color for doing yellows and things like that, and rich tones. And of course it's Copic, so it's very, very smooth, and you won't have any trouble with it if you decide to ever color something with this color. So I like it. But I apologize for being on so late. I've had a ton of stuff to do today, and it's just been crazy. So I wanted to get that knocked out and come on to see you guys and get this going so we get put another one in the books here. So I'm going to line this up to make it look a little more 3D. It's going to look a little animated, I think, when it's all said and done, because I'm going to try and make this pop a little bit. And the way you do that with this is you go around the hard edges. When you do animation style coloring, just go around the hard edges like this. I love to just outline one side like this and leave a strong highlight on the other side. And the way I do it is twofold. I put in a heavy shadow line on one side like this, right on the edge. And everybody's like, no, you didn't highlight it. And then what you do is you go in like this and highlight your non-hard lined details, like the ridge of his brow that he always does the evil, grimacing thing with, and edge that just a little bit like that. Edge that underside to show the curvature of the cheek with a little bit of a crescent point like that. And right underneath the edge of the eye right here where these ridges are for the eyebrows, come down, and it makes that artificial nose simulated look right underneath the eyes. So that'll make him pop really hard. And then right where everything crunches right here at the top, you make a little bit of a funky kind of a UFO pattern, for lack of a better term. And when it dries, it'll make it look three-dimensional. Now, if you want to, you can go as far as putting in little highlights or shadows on this side to make it bounce a little bit more, just depending on your light source. So, it's cool to do that. It's comics. You can do pretty much what you want. These things are very forgiving, especially when you're doing them for yourself. Now that we've got this going on, I'm going to highlight this a little bit. I want to test this real quick. But I'm going to highlight this on one side. And I know it says I said I'm highlighting it because of the fact that I'm putting in a shadow in actuality. But the thing is when you do this, you're contrasting So it's going to highlight that feature because it's going to make it stand out really heavy. And what you do is you start working it into those designs and making it bleed into the edge that you want it to for that overlay. Now, some people ask me all the time, it's like, well, why would you put in that one color if you're just going to color over it? Well, because when it dries and it's all said and done, it's going to have that duality of watering down that darker yellow and giving it that yellow tone instead of just wiping it out. So there's a difference because it's actually mixing and rehydrating the color that came before, so you get that true tone to it. And this is just going to kind of make it more like a three-dimensional sticker or cartoon, and that's why we do that. So, because when it dries, that'll all fade away into one big orange-yellow tone. Now, on the bones, I want to do something different because I've got a super light pale yellow, which is a Y11. Hey, Jim, glad you made it, man. Nathan Frazier made it on, man. If you don't know this guy, you got to follow him and check him out. He is just a wild card. Love the stuff you're doing, man. I've been following the podcast for a while. I really dig your work. Mr. Jim O'Reilly popped on to say hello. He's going to be doing a live for his new series of cards that he's doing over there for The Walking Dead. You guys got to check these things out. He's decided to start doing a set of straight to pin on these cards, and he's eyeballing them, and they're coming out phenomenally. Check him out, man. That's just crazy stuff. Jim is a good friend and a great artist, and the dude is just phenomenal when he does that stuff. I used to do that when I was a kid, and I have that gift of, drawing what I see. And I had to quit doing that because in comics, you end up mimicking more of the style than you want to make a mimic of the technique from people. But he looks at actual photographs, so he's looking at the dynamics. So I stained my hand green the other night. It's still green, by the way, if you see that. But anyway, yeah, check him out. He's doing phenomenal stuff over there. Hey, that's cool, man. I appreciate it. Jim's saying, for you guys that can't see, Jim B's on, and he's saying that he just wanted to pop on for a minute, and he's about to go to bed, which I totally understand. It's late. I'm keeping people out creeping. But, yeah, man, I mean, it's just one of those things. I like to see what's going on with people and check them out. And this, that's one of those things Jim is really, really good at, is going in and doing photorealism. And I don't do many portraits because of the fact that it just aggravates the heck out of me. I can do portrait work, but I don't enjoy it as much as I do comics. So I tend not to. And I get people upset at me all the time because I tend to do that and say no where they're asking me to do stuff like that. But anyway, if you're ever out drawing Evil Ernie, there's a thing with this. You got to be careful. He's not the typical gray pasty white character. Okay, they actually use warm colors to color this guy, and by that I mean the W series. This is a W1. It's called a warm gray, and you guys have seen me use this before if you've watched the show before, so you know what's going on with it. But whenever you're coloring Evil Ernie, always base his skin tone on a warm gray, a warm 1 or a warm 2 primarily, right out of the gate, because if you don't, you're going to pay for it dearly. And what I mean by that is it will not look good with the green that comes up. So I'm doing the same thing with him that I did with the creature from the Black Lagoon that I did, Gilman. And I really like the process of how these grays dry, because when they do, they don't conflict with everything. They actually make it look like flesh, and it does look like a zombie or corpse flesh, and that's gross to think about, but it is the reality of what we do. So, and I like these wedge tips because they give these tiny fine tips for the marker. You just have to rotate the block you know, you can see the label come around. Hey, label. I'm rotating this as I'm going along. That's why I'm getting a clean edge, because I'm not mashing my tip. They're a little firmer than the, and a lot smaller and finer than the brush tips, the paintbrush style tips from the other flat Copics. But the wedges are really, really solid. They're the same type of material. They're hand cut wedges, just like everything else from the other wedge tips on the other end of the flat painting cells. But anyway, these have a really, really good hard line to them, as long as you rotate the tip so you don't dry it out and ruin it. But anyway, let me get this arm over here. So we've got that going on. We've got Smiley. We've got Ernie toned up. I've got to pull out that pale yellow again, because that's what that originally was. And I'm going to give you guys a little secret on your highlights. Go in with a real pale yellow. This is a pale 11. The Y11, excuse me, the Y11 pale yellow. And I like to go in with this one because this gives him that corpse contrast for those green highlights later, and really, really, really brings out the look without having to mess with it too much, especially when you're hand painting it like this. Go in there and mix in this yellow, and I have highlighted spots that I left with the gray. That's the reason I'm coming around in specific spots and look like I know what I'm doing. It's because I left spots for that on purpose, that I'm just coloring in white spaces. But when you do this, add that yellow to it, and it'll add a ping or a pop to it to make it come up, and it adds a different vibrancy to it. It also makes it resonate towards Smiley as well, so you have that bond pulled together there, and it gives it that wicked, wicked bone color. So as you can see there, I missed that spot. There we go. Now, as you can see, hopefully, there is Ernie coming up. The flesh is starting to take form. And now I'm going to come in on the jacket. First off, before I do the hair, I'm going to do the jacket. I have a B23 here, which I'm going to wedge this right in for this jacket. I know people are going to be freaking out. It's like, you're going to color it all in, aren't you? I'm using my wedge tip here. And the answer to that is no. I'm going to leave a kind of a open highlight here and there. So we're going to have that going on like that. Because this is supposed to be a leather jacket, so it's got shiny, you know, when you have a patent leather jacket, you got to leave some edges because it's supposed to be shiny. And if you don't, it's going to look funky. And funky is a technical term, mind you. So take that with a, you know, grain of salt, whatever. Now I'm using one side of the wedge tip. When I use the tip here, it's got a wedge point to it, so it actually slopes. And that's the reason why I'm using that open corner, because the top tip is a really fine wedge, and I'm just kind of catching that and using it. And it has a cool gradation to it because it's got a slope, so you can either hit it hard at the top or hard at the bottom, and it's just goes in and makes great, really refined lines. And it just depends on how you pull it and use it and whatever. For me, we've got the jacket going behind his arm there, so I've got it open because his jacket's always baggy. And I'm just kind of using that wedge tip, like I said, that little corner, to bring this all together just a little bit. Nice and shiny. And we're going to go over here, and this one will be very easy. Going to come down right about here, color that in. I'm going to make a wedge right here. Now I'm going to make a slot right there for a natural highlight. Boom, done deal. We're going to go back over here and we'll color it there right down to the center. Love this thing. It's starting to pop up. Okay, now I'm going to flip over and use the broad side of this so it'll catch. And then we'll go back in and tweak that up a little bit so it doesn't stay in a wedge. And we'll go down here and put in for the collar shadow. And we have the first layer of Ernie's jacket, okay? Missed this one right here. There we go. Cool. Thanks, man. I appreciate it, Jim. Man, gonna go wood burning. Oh, geez, you're killing me. Jim O'Reilly's talking about wood burning now instead of doing his freehand inks. Dude's, oh. Always pushing the line, always pushing the line. Okay, now we're going to go in with this. I'm going to use a C7 here, and I'm going to let this blue sit just a little bit and let it set up and dry. And I'm going to use this this C7, which is a cool gray, number 7. And the reason I'm using that is because I'm going to use it on Ernie's hair here. And I'm going to go in real quick and just kind of softly cover in all of these things. Now, most artists would go in and leave highlights for these because his hair was supposed to be, you know, wet, grungy, slick kind of things, you know, and these little bunches that he's got going on, the waves and ripples and whatnot. And when he was popular, they would leave these white spots in his hair, and it would make it, you know, have that wet grunge look. But I like to close them in because Ernie doesn't stand in light too much, and I like it to look more lifeless than vibrant as far as living hair goes, because that was the one thing that he made the deal with, you know, no matter how much I rot, I don't want to lose my hair. And that's where we're at. So, and if you hear crunching and crackling, I'm popping a throat drop in my mouth, so you guys don't freak out. It's like, what is that crackling? Yeah, it's me. I had one tonight so that I didn't clear my throat and have allergy issues, because it rained today here in the city and then dropped like 30 degrees from a really nice day to you know, a high 70 day this morning, all the way down into the 50s by lunchtime, and then this afternoon by dusk, by 4:30, 5 o'clock, oh man, it was just so cold. It might have even hit the 40s. And this time of year, we expect an Easter cold snap. So, you know, we're not officially out of winter until we have our Easter cold snap and it snows on Easter. So that's the thing. It gets cold and wet on Halloween and starts our winter and goes right into the fall and the winter combined together and stay warm in the daytime and cold at night. And then it does that through whatever Easter falls on. It normally gives us a snow flurry and then moves on and stays a couple of days after that. But then that front goes away and then it warms up. We get a couple of nice evenings, springtime weather, where it's nice and gets warm in the daytime, and then a little cooler at night in the 50s or 60s, and then bam, we're gone, and it's Hades walking the planet, because so those things. And we rotate weather with Texas, so Oklahoma has Texas weather patterns. It is a vicious cycle that passes over, you know, Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma. It rotates back up over us, and yeah, it's vicious. The tri-state area seems to be in a zone. But anyway, now we're going to move in to the greens on Ernie. Okay, now we're going to start out. I'm going to test a couple of these. I know which ones I want to use, but I don't know which order I want to use them in because of the gradations. We have a really bright, yeah, we're going to start off with this one. A really bright yellow 13. It's a yellow G13. This is what I'm going to paint Ernie's eyes with. So we have that translucent Evil Ernie off green color, like this. I didn't want to use anything highlighted enough to look like a highlighter. So I just didn't want to do that. I felt that that would be awkward, and for me, it doesn't look dark enough or gritty enough. And to do that highlighter type of look, it looks a little funky to me, so I didn't do it. But anyway, I've got a couple of greens here that I'm going to be working with. And we're going to start off the primary for Ernie's abdomen and his face, where his eyes are. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this slight cloud color and grungy glowing look around his eyes now, right over the top of that beautiful skin color that he's got going on. Okay. Now, if I was to do this digital, I would leave this to where I could overcoat it. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to color this right out. So now we have a yellow-green 23, which is just a touch darker. And I'm going to shadow with that. Like that. He's got this really cool demonic look, and I like to mix that in a little bit. Now, I know this may not be as vibrant as you want it to be, but I've got a couple of greens in here that are going to be really cool and vibrant as we go. Right now, I just want this to get saturated. And when it dries, it'll have a nice mix and tonality to it. So now we have this yellow-green 03, which is the lightest of the three. I wanted to do it last because it's going to give a whitewash to these other two greens, and it's going to make them mix together really well. It's going to add a little more yellow into it, so it's going to show up a little bit more than the other did, like that. I want to mix that down here too. Just kind of mix it in areas, random, so when it dries, it shows up. Now comes the fun part, because we've got the green 07, which is one of the boldest greens I've got. And this one I want to do because of the fact that I want to do the core of the eyes to where it really looks like he has pupils and irises. Dink. Like that. And give him that crazy eye look. Like that. Now, what you do with these darker ones, on Ernie, what you do with these darker ones, because most people screw this up, what you do is kind of like Kirby Crackles. And if you're a comic fan, you know what Kirby Crackles are. You go in with the Kirby Crackles on these green ones within the green flame energy of what's coming off of his eyes, like this. And you just spackle it in there. And the reason you do that, I mean, most people will be like, why are you spotting his face? When it dries, that's the heaviest points of the energy coming out of his system. Okay, that's why you do that. And then you can go in and shadow his core like this on one side. And all that'll show through. Now, let's see. I've got this really cool clay gray. It's called E44. It's almost a brown color. What you're going to do with it is go back over his hair in places. And the reason we're going to do that is because it'll give that color break to show his hair in different major color tones. It just gives it a vibrancy when it pops up, and it'll make the eye wonder what it is, because your brain can separate the color, okay, but your conscious mind necessarily won't, because it processes it so fast as a subconscious thing to absorb the information. And that's what gives you that effect of the, you know, when you look at something and you go, wow, that looks awesome. Well, the reason is because you're accepting all that information, and your brain gives you that feeling and sensation to keep you from going nuts. It makes you excited. So I am going to reach off camera just really quick here and grab my C1 out of this box, which I've used many, many times. You guys know what this is. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to tone these teeth right under the lip just to give it a little depth like that. Get back in the corner of that mouth just a little. Right down here. Okay, here we go. We're going to go in and we're going to shade the teeth. So we got that going on. Boom, boom, boom. Don't want to do them all. There we go. Cool deal. Now, I'm also going to go back up in here and add this cool gray. Last touch, cool gray. Now, I noticed I said in the beginning to use warm grays on Ernie. But the thing is, after you add his power effects, go back in and highlight the highlights and shadow the dark spots. And add in these cool grays because they'll give it that energetic glow that you want to have him show up with at the end. And it'll give him that bony look. You know, that real cold gray funk. But the warm will give it that enough of a brown fleshy tone to where it makes it look aged, and gives it kind of that rotting old flesh look that we want to see in characters like this to make him look a little more gory along the way. So I'm going to take on Smiley here and I'm going to shadow one side of this. So this underside here to give him that distinct look that he has and give him a little more dynamic edge. That dude is just out of the series. The funny thing is, out of the series, Ernie doesn't bother me as much as Smiley did. Smiley was nuts. So that character's just crazy. Okay. Cool and deal. Now, I'm going to go back over with this jacket, and then we're going to wrap this up, okay? So, what you're going to do, I'm going to go to first, I'm going to go back to the wedge, the point tip, so we don't lose the integrity of all that work. Go at a wedge on this thing, and it'll be all over, because it'll wipe out all of that blue. Now, we have these really cool finite shades. Now, these don't have to be perfect, and don't freak out about it if they're not. You know, just go in and do your lines. I mean, if you're doing something professionally, yeah, be responsible for that, you know, and uphold the integrity of the project. But you don't have to freak out to where you can't enjoy the artwork. I mean, get in there and get it done. Make it sing, you know, and that's what we're doing here. And that's what I love to do with this, because when I flip this back over, you guys are going to be able to see that, and it's going to just pop off big time. Okay, I see so many people just freak out so hard over this stuff, and they're like, I messed it up, and I don't want to, you know, mess it up, and this, that, and the other. And it's like, stop whining and just draw. And I understand the concern, but like I said, you know, if you screw it up, it's on paper and you can redo it. You know, you can light box it and redo it. Not recommended, because I wouldn't put in the damage for that, you know, to where you have to get to that point. But this kind of situation is why we practice. So you get yourself some cards or some sketchbooks or some paper, and, you know, you go to town on it. And the reason you do that is because of the fact that we practice as artists. So we don't make mistakes as often, because we make them all the time. You just have to get in there and get it done. I see so many people just freak out about that stuff, and it's just, man, just breathe and get in there and draw and get it done. So we have Evil Ernie. Okay, cool deal. I'm going to make that fabric string down just a little. Now we have that going on, and we've got Ernie here. Now what I'm going to do, one more thing, that I have to do is I've got to go back with, where is it? A warm 5. I'm going to use a W5 on this. And the reason I'm going to do this is because I'm going to go now and tone him down where we have hard shadows. So this is going to give him that evil look and that dark grimacing thing that he always does. And again, back to the warms. The reason I'm using the warms is because of the fact that they come off with the grays that I want, that dark brown gray type of fleshy, that silver hue gray. When silver oxidizes, it turns this brownish gray like this. And that is a huge thing for characters like Evil Ernie because of the fact that it comes off in contrast to green, and it contrasts the black from the jacket and the blue and the gray, and then it also contrasts the human element, for the yellow and the white that the other grays don't allow for. And the reason I'm going in with this right now over the green is because of the fact that I wanted the green first, and this is going to be a tone over both of those. So it looks like this is a little bit darker because it's under the eye. Even though it's coming out of it, it still gives that tonality in the green itself, and that's what we want. So we want it to have that kind of shadowed look, and you can't get that unless you actually shadow the green underneath. That's why I'm doing this right here as the finishing. So a lot of people will be freaked out about that, but when you do manual shading like markers and things like that, you'll tend to get into that habit and learn that stuff. Learn your shadows. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that tell me all the time, I'm a teacher, you need to do this. And I'm like, I'm an artist, bite me. But no, I take it with respect and take it with a grain of salt, though, nonetheless, in both parts. So, and you have to do that as well. You have to be thick-skinned to be an artist. And you have to take consideration and critiques and information, and that's fine, but you don't have to live by it either. So, I mean, a lot of kids will be like, well, you're teaching those kids wrong. You got to come in there and do that. And I was taught by my art teacher in school not to do that. Well, guess what? Your art teacher is a teacher, not an artist. They're teaching you techniques that you're supposed to use, but they're not teaching you creative freedom to experiment and find your own voice. They're teaching you tactical techniques that they're paid to teach. There's a difference. So study art if you like, pick up new techniques, pick up growth, and move on. You know what I mean? That's what I recommend. That's why I tell my students all the time, go in and they're like, well, how do I draw this and how do I draw that? Well, I don't know. How do you draw that? Give it a shot and find out. Give it a shot. It'll blow your mind what you're able to do when you decide you're going to do it your way. How would you do it? That's the question to ask. So, and now to break this up a little bit, I'm going to add in some of this too. I got to be careful here because these crossbones like this, if you're not careful with them, they'll look like butts. So be sure not to divide the crack, you know what I mean? And I mean not to be vulgar or anything. I'm being serious as you can take that. So, and you don't want it to look, like I said, you don't want it to look like you're drawing a butt. But, okay, now I've got to draw just a little bit of shadow down here for the bone under the jacket. A little bit of light there, a little bit of light there. And now we have Ernie coming off. So what I'm going to do with this one, because it is so unique in the way it's presented, I have decided that I'm going to do something really cool with this. And where is it? Okay, that is not it. Hold on just a second. I'm going to grab, there it is, there it is. I have two purples here. I have a V09, which is a violet, and I have a V06, which is a lavender. And I think I'm going to go in with the lavender because the purple or the violet is just too dark. It is vicious, and I do not want that roaming around here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in with a line, and I'm going to leave a defining line around him on this one because I want this to pop out. Normally I would like to go up against the skin, right up against the edge of the character, because I would want it to stick out. But, you know, I make him look like he's actually in the image and in the background. But since we don't have any backgrounds going on here, I'm going to do something a little different. Now I'm going to go back to this wedge here. I'm going to brush this on really fast because this wedge will leave marker lines because of the fact that it's so massive. So I'm going to blend that together really quick. Okay. Saturate that down really good. And if you go over and you touch him like that right there, like I did there, just complete the contact and we move on. Those are called touch points. That's not a big deal. Artists do that all the time. You can take a white pen later and go back in there. If you're so bent about it, you can take a white pen and go back in there. But is it just me, or does he look like Jeff Goldblum and maybe Howard Stern's love child? I don't know. I'm sorry. Anyway, now I'm going to go back off the edge of this thing with this gorgeous purple here. This violet is freaking awesome. I love this color. Now to make it true Evil Ernie style, I'm going to go in here and wedge this kind of like that. And I'm bending this up a little bit where it's not exactly even. I want it to be a little rough on that edge and over here as well. We're going to go in here and kind of zigzag back and forth a little bit. When you do that, be careful though. Try not to crush your wedges because you'll crush your wedge tip and then it will tear, and then you'll have to be buying another one. You'll be griping at me. Look what you did. Look what you did. I don't want to be hearing that mess. And I'm going to go one darker. I have a blue violet 08 here. I'm going to kind of wedge this in again just to kind of darken this up and make it gradate a little bit deeper with the gradient going on. Going to wedge it in about here. And done deal. Now, with this point, we have Evil Ernie. And now, just to be fun about it, I'm going to grab one of my white gel pens. Make sure this one's open. Bear with me just a second while I get my pen open here. There we go. Cool deal. To make this pop, got some paper fuzz on there. I'm going to go right along the edge of the black line for Smiley here. Right along that edge. And I'll probably have to do this in a couple of layers, which that's fine by me. Because this is a new pen, the gel's not down yet. And it'll lead right into that. Oh, there it goes. Cool deal. But it'll lead right into that white line. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's going to add that three-dimensional pop that we want. Right over him to separate him from Ernie just a little bit. Yeah, see, this is a new pin. This is by Jelly Roll, and this is a brand new pin. So we're getting a little bit thinner reaction. I like to use the pilots better than this one, but I don't have one handy. I have it at the other workstation, and I just decided to use this at the last second, so that's when we're getting this. But it still works. It still works. It kind of adds a creepy, foggy look to it, which I like. Because you don't want to saturate it to where the color goes completely off anyway. But by still being translucent just a little, it adds a glowing, floaty feel to him, which is awesome. So that's what you want. Now, I just want him to separate from Ernie just a little bit and to stand off. And the reason I'm doing that is because, like I said, I just wanted to make it pop up, look a little more vibrant. Awesome. And not walking over that black line. Cool deal. So that makes him stand out from Ernie just a little bit. Now, with that said, I am going to be doing that's Evil Ernie for the finish here. Right after midnight, I have the Guyver here holding one of the mutants' heads. I have to erase this and clean it now that the ink is set. But yeah, we've got Evil Ernie here, and as always, if you don't rejoin me tonight after midnight for tomorrow's card, I appreciate you coming on right now. And I will say, as always, we've got this rock for a little while, and we need to leave it better for the next generation. And for those coming on for Guyver in a little bit, I appreciate that too, and I'll catch you then. So either way, take care. Catch you later.